Makes the Daily Mail launch an extraordinary attack on the Sussexes. Let me tell you, folks, the gloves are off. I've got the inside story, plus tangible proof that Harry wants out of that marriage. But first, absolutely huge, having lost his legal action against the Daily Mail and potentially on the hook for 10, 15 or $20 million. And I say that with no pleasure at all, but as always with Harry, it is self-inflicted. Sarah Vine, one of the most respected journalists in the world and an icon at the Daily Mail, has written a brutal piece about Harry and Meghan. Wait for this quote. For two people, she says, who claim to be so in tune with their feelings and those of others, time and time again, they've demonstrated a complete lack of emotional intelligence combined with a weapons-grade sense of entitlement. You see, that's the issue with Harry and Meghan now. You can have all the public relations that you want, all of the press releases, right? The relentless and ruthless Sussex PR machine which never sleeps. But we see you. And now these great journalists see the couple as well. She says they're so wrapped up in their own drama, so insulated in their bubble of privilege, they fail to realise how thoroughly charmed their existence is. And that is an unattractive trait. She goes on, at a time when the royal family needed Harry most, when Queen Elizabeth was ill, when Prince Philip had died, he not only slammed the door in their face, but he also tried to burn the place down on the way out. Now, this is wild and this is outrageous. In just a few minutes' time, I'm going to give you tangible evidence that Harry's not happy in that marriage and he wants out. But first, Sarah Vine, and she's a great journalist, and by the way, a good friend of mine, a regular on my old GB News show. A very intelligent lady. She used to be married to a top British politician called Michael Gove. And she tells the most amazing story, and it's all in relation to the Sussexes. You've got to hear about this. Now, Soho House is a private members club with venues all over the world. And she says when Soho House in Istanbul opened its doors in April 2015, an old friend of mine was thrilled to be invited to the celebrations. Okay, so Sarah Vine talking about her friend that goes to the launch event of this amazing private members club. And by the way, they've got like outdoor swimming pool, indoor swimming pool, gymnasium, cocktails, 3 restaurants. It is like the best food you can imagine. It is the lap of luxury. It is the elite Soho House. She says it was a glamorous weekend-long affair attended by many celebrities, including Eddie Redmayne, Jamie Dornan, Sophie Ellis-Bextor, Claudia Winkleman, Paloma Faith, lots of these celebrities. They were lavish lunches, she said, and boat trips. Many of the people invited stayed in the new hotel, a beautifully restored palazzo. She said, my friend remembers that at one point he was in the lobby of the hotel when a very pretty American woman strode up to the front desk. I wonder who that would be. My husband! This lady, this unnamed young American actress, proceeded to berate and attack the staff about some kind of problem in her room. Sarah Vine says, my friend couldn't quite catch the details, but the general idea, the general gist seemed to be that she was unhappy with the quality of her goodie bag, which she felt was insufficiently lavish in its largesse and generosity. Now, do you know what a goodie bag is? If you go to a big showbiz party, on your way out, you have a little gift. And basically, they've got boxes and boxes of these gifts. It might be a little bag. It might have some makeup in there, some perfume, might be a little bit of technology. Who knows? I went to the launch of a Nintendo, which is like a computer game, and you've got a small console in your bag, which is a wonderful thing. So you get a goodie bag. It's a big showbiz thing. It's a gift at the end. There could be anything in there, but luxury items. So what Sarah Vine is revealing is that this individual, this unnamed, unknown American actress, was furious about the quality of her goodie bag. Now, this is free, right? You're on a free holiday. You got free entry to this party with cocktails and food, a free goodie bag, but not good enough for this unnamed, young, relatively unknown American actress. Sarah Vine says, my friend remembers thinking, wow, it takes some chutzpah and some self-confidence to complain about a free gift at a free weekend in a 5-star hotel full of A-list stars. At the time, this guy had no idea who the American was, who the angry American was, nor, he recalls, did anyone else in his group. So they had no idea who this angry lady was. A year later, he saw a photograph of Prince Harry's new girlfriend, Meghan Markle, and recognised her immediately as the angry woman from Soho House, Istanbul, who was not happy with the free goodie bag. Now, Sarah Vine, who's a very nice lady, highly intelligent and a great writer as well, she says, I've never forgotten that anecdote because it always seemed to me that given the way things turned out, it was pretty telling. In fact, in many ways, it reflects Meghan's attitude to the royal family as a whole. Treated with generosity and kindness, offered all the trappings and the status, but somehow none of it was ever quite enough. And that's it. She's nailed it. Sarah Vine has captured the essence and identified the problem with Meghan Markle. Nothing is ever enough. So she marries into the royal family and they're in this beautiful home, which is Frogmore Cottage on the Windsor estate. It's the kind of place you and I can only dream of. Not good enough for Meghan. She has to spend $3 million of British taxpayers' money redecorating it. And the work she did and the taste that she had was so horrible that King Charles is now thinking of reversing all of the work that they did. But it wasn't good enough. And Meghan was horrified to discover that Harry wasn't as rich as she thought he was because he was only worth about 30 or 40 or $50 million. Well, poor Harry to be that broke. She thought he was worth $500 million. She was shocked to discover that William and Catherine would live in a larger house and would be treated in an elevated way within the family because they were going to become king and queen. She couldn't handle it. So nothing is ever good enough for Megs. And that anecdote about the goodie bag says it all. So the brilliant Sarah Vine goes on to say that after Megxit, Meghan stamped her pretty little foot and flounced off back to America with Harry in tow before complaining vociferously and angrily to anyone and everyone, including Oprah Winfrey, on that interview, how ghastly and awful the whole experience of being in the royal family was. She goes on to say, rather like the staff at the front desk at Soho House, the royals didn't quite know what had hit them. And that is it. She also reflects on what a terrible choice of wife Meghan was for Harry, because Harry's a complete fool. He needed a kindly, warm, friendly, jolly, rosy-cheeked, slightly chubby wife. English, with bright, smiling eyes, someone that knows her way around the kitchen, maybe a bit of baking. Just, you know, a friendly, regular gal, maybe someone that works in a cake shop, that kind of thing. Childbearing hips, that's what we're looking for. That is the brief. Not a social climbing, pathologically transactional American TV actress. The worst thing that Harry could ever go for. So she says Meghan, with her own complicated family background and seeming desire for fame and fortune, was never going to be the right person for Harry. And that's it. She's got it. I mean, it's the worst thing he ever did. A huge, huge mistake. Interestingly, she also says that Harry wanted out of the royal family as much as Meghan did, and Meghan was his escape route. And she says, in regard to Harry and Meghan, to many Brits, when Meghan mocked Queen Elizabeth in that Harry and Meghan documentary where she did the fake curtsy, to many Brits, such casual mockery of the institution to which the late Queen dedicated her entire life smacked of arrogance. It's exactly what it was. And what have Harry and Meghan got to be arrogant about? Here I am in Los Angeles, California, and you've got the elite of the entertainment business. You've got Spielberg, you've got Larry David, and you've got, I don't know, all these famous actresses, George Clooney and Meryl Streep, right? All these geniuses, very accomplished. And they're, you know, writers, screenplays, that kind of thing, set designers. They're all accomplished. They've all got something that they've achieved. What have Harry and Meghan done?
Something very strange is happening around Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. And it has nothing to do with another Netflix documentary, nothing to do with Meghan's latest Instagram post. And surprisingly, it doesn't even begin with the royal family. It begins with David Foster, a 16-time Grammy-winning music producer, a Hollywood heavyweight, a man who has been described as something of a father figure to Harry. And now, a few seconds of footage from a red carpet have sent the internet into meltdown. Because Meghan appeared to reach out to greet Foster, and he appeared to walk straight past her. No hug, no obvious acknowledgement, no warm exchange. Harry, however, appeared to get a greeting. And suddenly the internet had a question. Was Meghan just snubbed by one of the couple's own Hollywood friends? Now, before we get carried away, there is another side to this story. A source has since told Page 6 that Foster and Meghan had already greeted each other before the footage, meaning the viral clip may not tell the whole story. Page 6. So perhaps this was nothing. Perhaps it was simply an awkward few seconds on a chaotic red carpet. But here's why I think this moment is worth talking about. Because David Foster isn't just some random celebrity. His relationship with Harry goes back years. Foster and his wife, Catherine McPhee, were among the people who helped Harry and Meghan during their early transition away from Britain. Earlier reports even describe Foster as having a particularly close relationship with Harry, with McPhee comparing the two to father and son. So, if even that relationship is now being questioned, it raises a much bigger question. What is happening to Harry and Meghan's circle? And perhaps even more importantly, why does Harry suddenly seem so interested in rebuilding the relationship with the family he once walked away from? Because remember what happened. Harry and Meghan didn't leave quietly. They didn't simply say, "This life isn't for us. We're moving to America." They told the world why. They spoke to Oprah. They produced a Netflix documentary. Harry published Spare. There were accusations about the royal family. There were deeply personal revelations. There were allegations about private conversations. There were stories about Prince William. There were complaints about Harry's treatment by the institution. And after all of that, Harry now wants reconciliation. So here's the question I can't get away from. How do you reconcile with people after telling the world what happened behind closed doors? How do you sit down with your father after publicly discussing your family disagreements? How do you rebuild trust with your brother after revealing private details about your relationship? And how does the royal family simply move forward? Because Harry may be ready to forgive, but reconciliation isn't a one-person decision. The other side has to want it too. And that brings us to the comment from one UK viewer that honestly captures the frustration perfectly. They wrote, "I just can't wrap my head around why Harry thinks there can be any kind of real reconciliation after all the awful things Harry and Meghan have said about the royal family. How can he act like nothing happened?" And that is the question. How can they go back, not physically, emotionally? Because you can't simply erase Oprah, you can't erase Harry and Meghan, you can't erase Spare, you can't erase the interviews, you can't erase the accusations, and you certainly can't erase the years of headlines. So when Harry talks about reconciliation now, what exactly does he mean? Does he want forgiveness? Does he want a relationship with his father? Does he want his children to have a relationship with their grandfather? Does he want to repair things with William? Or does he simply want the door to the royal family left open? Because those are very different things. And then something very interesting happened. Harry returned to Britain. And now, according to the discussion in the Mark Dolan interview, he's expected to return again. But this time, without Meghan and without the children. And that detail matters, because if Harry really wants to rebuild his relationship with his father, perhaps the smartest thing he can do is stop making everything a production. No cameras, no Netflix crew, no carefully arranged photographs, no public statement after every meeting, just father and son. That's essentially the point being made in the interview. And honestly, it may be the only way this has any chance of working. Because trust doesn't return because somebody gives an interview saying they want reconciliation. Trust returns through repetition. You show up. You keep your promises. You don't leak. You don't retaliate. You don't turn every private conversation into public content. You rebuild slowly. And that brings us to something Mark Dolan said that I think is incredibly important. Reconciliation with King Charles is not necessarily reconciliation with Prince William. And that distinction could become the biggest problem of all. Charles may open the door, but William controls the future. King Charles is Harry's father. William is Harry's brother. But William is also the future king. So even if Charles decides, I want my son back, William may have a very different calculation, and that's why Harry's relationship with his brother could be much harder to repair. Because this isn't just about hurt feelings, it's about trust. It's about private information. It's about the future of the monarchy. And ultimately, it's about whether William believes Harry can be trusted again. So when people say, bring Harry home, I think we need to ask, home to what? A working royal role? Probably not. A return to the old life? Almost certainly not. A reconciliation with his father? Possibly. A reconciliation with William? Much harder. A relationship between the cousins? Maybe. A completely restored Sussex position inside the monarchy? That's a different question altogether. And this is where I disagree with the idea that everyone wants Harry and Meghan back. Because do they, really? Or do people want Harry back? There's a difference. The Bring Them Back campaign. There are certainly people who believe the royal family should reconcile with Harry and Meghan. Some argue that life is too short. Some believe families should forgive. Others point to Harry's children and say Archie and Lilibet shouldn't grow up disconnected from their royal relatives. And then there are people who simply believe the monarchy is stronger when the family appears united. That's understandable. But there is another side. There are royal watchers who say, why should the royal family welcome them back after everything that was said? And that argument deserves to be heard too. Because imagine this from the family's perspective. You are told privately that someone has hurt you. You try to deal with it. Then details appear publicly. Then more details appear. Then a documentary. Then a memoir. Then more interviews. And years later, that same person says, I'd like reconciliation. Would you immediately trust them? Probably not. You might forgive them. But trust, that's different. And as Mark Dolan put it, trust comes in on foot and leaves on horseback.
Prince, that's the CV, the end. So Sarah Vine talks about the mockery on that TV show, the the Harry and Meghan documentary show on Netflix. And she said it was so arrogant to tease the Queen. She said sitting next to her, Harry sitting next to Meghan on that sofa as the Queen was being mocked, even Harry seemed a little taken aback. I should say so. I think that's the moment the penny dropped and Harry realised what a shocking mistake he'd made. But at that point, he's all in. You know, I think it's a bit like sometimes people are the victims of a confidence trickster. And when you tell them that, oh, you know, that guy who's like in, I don't know where he is. You've met someone in the Far East and he's 25 years of age. He's like a quarter your age. He says he loves you and you're going to be happily married. I'm afraid he's just after your money, you know. And that the victim of the scam, the catfishing, whatever you want to call it, they never want to believe that they've been had. So they keep the lie going in their own heads. And I think that's happened to Harry. I think he knows he's made a big mistake deep down to marry Meghan. Why? Well, the proof of that is he's lost his royal status. He's lost his military honours. All the ceremonial stuff has gone. He's got no relationship with his brother William, who's his only connection to their late mother Diana. He's on friendly, polite and diplomatic terms with his father, but no more than that. He's stuck in America, in California. I'm very happy. It suits me here. you know, I'm very lucky like that. I'm a very Californian type of person. You know, I'm also a big entertainer, so this is the right town for me. It's the right industry. That entertainment is in every cell of my body. Look at me, for God's sakes. Entertainment just comes out of the pores of my skin. Look at it. Look at this. This is just, you know what I mean? I'm just constructed for the pleasure of others. That's what this is. And I've got a very rapid brain, which is like a Tesla from like 10 years from now. It's like a 2030 scene Tesla brain. And I have a swimmer's build. It's all going on, beautifully put together. So I'm just right for this setting. But Harry, with his ginger hair and the freckles and the sunburn and the melanoma, forget it. And the heat, permanently sweating. He's so uncomfortable the whole time. That's why he's so tetchy.
I'm so bloody hot. Always in California, I'm boiling, you know. I need to be like the middle of England, in Manchester or something, yeah? Birmingham, really. It's better for the lesser spotted Harry. Needs the climate to be temperate, yeah? Not hotty, sweaty California, yeah?
So, he's out of his habitat. But I've outlined to you. If you think I'm being harsh to Meghan, my husband, flower sprinkles and lavender towels go in the refrigerator. If you think I'm being harsh on Meghan, I've laid it out for you. He's lost his brother. He's got a polite, formal relationship with his father. His own country have given up on him. Harry, I hate to say it, again, with no pleasure, he's not liked in his own country. He keeps suing people and losing. All of this has happened since Meg's. I don't think she's a good influence on him. What I will say...
So why now? And this is where the story gets really interesting. Why now? Why, after years of insisting they wanted independence, is Harry suddenly focused on reconciliation? Is it simply because he's getting older? Because his father is aging? Because he wants his children to know their grandfather? Because he regrets how things unfolded? Because he misses Britain? Because he misses his family? Or is there something else? Because Harry and Meghan's American experiment hasn't unfolded exactly as many expected. The Netflix deal happened, the memoir happened, the podcasts happened, the lifestyle projects happened, the celebrity appearances happened. But the Sussexes still seem unable to escape the one thing they claimed they were leaving behind, the royal family. The irony is almost unbelievable. They moved thousands of miles away, and the monarchy followed them. Every interview becomes a royal story. Every business announcement becomes a royal story. Every trip to Britain becomes a royal story. Every photograph involving their children becomes a royal story. And now even a few seconds between Meghan and David Foster become a story. Why? Because Harry and Meghan are not ordinary Hollywood celebrities. Their relevance is tied to something much bigger. The crown. And then there's David Foster, which brings us back to that red carpet. Because there's another layer here. David Foster has historically been associated with Harry's transition into his American life. He was part of the Hollywood network around the Sussexes during those early days. And now Harry and Meghan are appearing at Foster's Foundation Gala. The event itself was actually a huge success. The three-day celebration raised $14.5 million.
Like David Foster, he's that 16-time Grammy winner. He's the architect of hits for people like Whitney Houston, Celine Dion, Michael Jackson, Barbara Streisand, Michael Bublé, Andrea Bocelli, and so on and so forth. He's in the Songwriters Hall of Fame and also the founder of this brilliant charity called the David Foster Foundation. He's married to Catherine McPhee, who's the one getting everybody to pose together nicely. What this was the 40th anniversary gala on the 7th of August. It does, the footage, we've just seen it, it does seem to be that Meghan was being ignored, first of all. He sort of looked straight through her. And it does look like a sort of deliberate snub. Obviously, they've reached out to the Sussexes and others to comment, but they refused to do so. What happens, the good news, Gavin, I always like to try and look at the positive thing as well, is that the night it raised 14.5 million Canadian dollars, it was about $10.5 million US dollars, for children needing organ transplants. So I think from that point of view, there's the positive side. But the internet certainly saw a snub, and the camera basically picked that up. Judge for yourself. What do you think?
Well, it's interesting when it's for the cameras, isn't it? And yeah, I tell you what, royal fans or anyone on the internet now, they will make a fuss of it, that's for sure. And here we are doing the same thing on Power Hour. But I love that you like to finish with some positive news, and that absolutely is some. Finally, before we move on from Prince Harry, he's issued a new statement when it comes to child safety online following this landmark New Mexico ruling against Meta. So a judge fined the tech giant more than $500 million, likening its platforms rather to factories, saying that the psychological harm to children on Facebook.
For the David Foster Foundation, which supports Canadian families with children needing life-saving organ transplants. Page 6. So let's not lose sight of that. Whatever happened between Foster and Meghan on that carpet, the actual purpose of the event was much bigger. It raised millions for children and families, and Meghan herself was reportedly warm toward pregnant singer Pia Toscano at the event, while Harry was described as courteous and helpful. Page 6. So perhaps the viral snub really was nothing. Perhaps David simply didn't see Meghan's gesture. Perhaps they had already spoken. Perhaps the camera caught one awkward second. And that's it. But here's what fascinates me. The fact that millions of people immediately interpreted the moment as a snub tells us something about the Sussexes' public image. People are watching their relationships. They're watching who stands beside them. They're watching who invites them. They're watching who doesn't. And they're asking who is still genuinely in their corner. Harry's new battle isn't the palace. And there's another part of this interview that I don't want to overlook, because while Harry's family drama continues, his public campaigning has shifted. His latest target isn't King Charles, it isn't Prince William, it isn't the British press, it's big tech. Harry has spoken out following a landmark New Mexico ruling involving Meta and allegations concerning the psychological impact of its platforms on children. The court ordered Meta to pay hundreds of millions of dollars on top of a previous jury award, bringing the reported total to roughly $942 million. Harry described the ruling as a turning point and argued that harm to children from social media is a choice rather than an inevitable side effect. This is actually one area where even critics of Harry's royal battles can acknowledge that he is pursuing a cause he has consistently talked about: mental health and the well-being of children. And that's interesting because Harry may finally be developing an identity that isn't entirely dependent on royal family drama. But then, why does he keep returning to the palace? Maybe Harry is finally realizing what he lost. Here's my theory. Maybe Harry isn't trying to become a working royal again. Maybe he doesn't want the palace. Maybe he doesn't want the restrictions. Maybe he doesn't want the old life. Maybe he simply wants his family back. And those are two completely different things. You can hate the institution and still miss your father. You can reject royal life and still miss your brother. You can build a new home and still miss where you came from. And perhaps Harry has finally reached that point. But there's a problem. His family isn't the only thing he has to reconcile with. He also has to reconcile his past with his present, because Harry spent years explaining why he left. Now he has to explain why he wants to come back. And what about Meghan? This is where things become even more complicated. Because Harry returning to Britain alone creates an entirely different image. Harry goes, Meghan stays, Harry sees his father. Meghan remains in California. Harry's royal relationship develops separately from Meghan's public life. Could that actually be healthier? Maybe. It could remove some of the pressure. It could allow Harry and Charles to speak privately. It could prevent every interaction from becoming a referendum on Meghan. But it also raises another question. What happens if Harry rebuilds his relationship with his family without Meghan?
Sydney Christmas, Rebecca Christmas, her name, it's Cynthia, it's a real roadblock for me, but I think her name is Cindy Christmas. She elevated Harry, and what I mean by that is that she looked at him and thought, you know, you are good looking, you are famous, you are royal, you're blue-blooded, you're aristocratic, you are genetically, you know, upper level, because you are, aren't you? If you remember, I mean, I don't think Harry is smart or anything like that, but he's royal, you know, he's blue-blooded, and that has huge value. He has got that pedigree with his mother, Diana, the Princess of Wales, and his father, which one was it? I think King Charles.
Well, you see, yes, I most certainly, definitely Harry's father, you see, because you can just tell Harry's balding slightly, rather large ears. Also, just, you know, maybe rather dim-witted, actually. No real common sense. It's definitely mine, you see, Camilla. This bloody drastic pen doesn't work, Camilla.
Oh, relax, Charles. Get over yourself.
Yes, you're quite right, Camilla. I thought.
Right. The bottom line is that this lady, Sydney Christmas, has seen Harry as above her and looking up to him and starstruck. And that is so different from Meghan putting him down the whole time. My husband, H. What an insult. His name's Harry, for goodness sakes. He's fifth in line to the throne. Can we use all the letters of his name? My husband. So, but if you look at Harry and Meghan out in public, she manipulates him, she prods him, she holds his hand, she pushes him around. She controls his social media. The only time we see Harry online is when she decides to do a photo drop on her Instagram. He's got no social media. So I feel that he's the spare in his own relationship. He's the help. When he goes to New York with Meghan, he's following behind. When he goes on her TV show with Love Meghan, he's got to basically get a cameo, a tiny role, where he says,
Oh, well done, my love. You're so amazing, yeah?
there was that embarrassing video that she did after Megxit when they were in California for the first time. And there was a really pathetic sight of Harry through the windows, right, of the house. She's doing a video with her best friend and Harry's outside and you can see through the window, he's like juggling, like the court jester, like a complete fool. So I feel that Meghan puts him down. I think she makes him small. She belittles him. She controls him. She's micromanaging. And I think there's contempt there. And I think he feels worthless. Look at his self-confidence. You know, his shoulders are hunched. He only looks happy, in my opinion. I know it's going to be very harsh to say, but when he's not with Megs, and especially when he's in England on his own without Megs, then we get the old Harry.
That's something nobody can answer yet. And we shouldn't pretend we know. But it is an intriguing possibility, because perhaps the first step toward reconciliation isn't Harry and Meghan returning to the royal family. Perhaps it's simply Harry returning to his father. One conversation at a time. The biggest test is coming, and that's why Harry's next UK visit could be far more important than the previous one. Forget the headlines, forget the photographs. Forget the speculation. Watch the small things. Does Charles make time for him? Does Harry stay longer? Are they photographed together? Does Harry leave immediately? Does Charles appear comfortable? And most importantly, does Harry come back again? Because one visit proves very little. 2 visits show intention. 3 visits start to look like a relationship being rebuilt. But then comes the ultimate test. William. Because until Harry and William begin repairing their relationship, I don't think we can call this a genuine royal reconciliation. It would simply be a father forgiving his son. And that's beautiful, but it's not the same as healing the entire family. The Sussexes said they were done, and perhaps that's the elephant in the room. Harry and Meghan said they wanted freedom. They said they wanted privacy. They said they wanted independence. They moved away. They built a new life. They told their story. They made their accusations. They made their money. They established their own brand. So why should the royal family now be expected to simply reopen the door? And more importantly, why should Harry expect them to forget? Maybe they shouldn't. Maybe reconciliation doesn't mean pretending nothing happened. Maybe it means acknowledging that something did happen and choosing to move forward anyway. But that requires accountability. It requires humility. It requires patience. And most of all, it requires trust. So perhaps the real story isn't whether David Foster snubbed Meghan Markle. Maybe he did. Maybe he didn't. The footage is certainly awkward, but there is now a denial that the moment represented a deliberate snub. Page 6. The bigger story is what that tiny moment represents in the public imagination. Harry and Meghan's relationships are constantly being examined. Their friendships, their Hollywood connections, their royal connections, their business relationships, and now their attempts to rebuild the family they once walked away from. Harry may genuinely want reconciliation. His father may genuinely want to see his son. And perhaps that's a good thing. But reconciliation isn't a reset button. You can't erase Oprah. You can't erase Spare. You can't erase the documentaries. You can't erase the interviews. And you certainly can't demand that everyone else forget what was said. So if Harry really wants his family back, perhaps the most important thing he can do is stop explaining, stop fighting, stop looking for public validation, and simply show up, quietly, consistently, privately. Because if the relationship with Charles is truly being repaired, we won't need Harry to tell us. We'll see it. And if he eventually repairs things with William, that will be the real reconciliation story. But until then, one question remains hanging over the Sussexes. You said you were done with the royal family. So why do you need them now? And perhaps even more importantly, does the royal family actually need you back? That's the question I want to hear from you. Would you welcome Harry back into the royal family? And what about Meghan? Or do you agree with the UK viewer who said no one wants them back? Let me know in the comments.